Hello, this is a comparison between two restored Bechstein grands, 2 meters long. This one was made in 1886 and this one was made in 1903. Now both these pianos are in stock at the current moment of time, and this one has original ivory keys. They're almost perfect. Now on the older one we've replaced the ivory keys. It was necessary because too many of them were damaged. Now most Bechstein grands have this legs of this period of time have, as you can see, turned legs, and also a nice turned lyre as well. Now the 1886 actually has a lyre-shaped lyre. It's called a lyre because it was originally lyre-shaped, and you can see it's very, very attractive indeed. Here's a close-up of that lyre, and as we've said before, Bechstein pedals are really excellent because they're so low down. If you were a tall person, you could raise the casters up an inch and the pedals wouldn't be too high for you. Now if we look at the frame, there's very, very little change in that period of time. There's about 17 years difference, and as we can see, it was obviously such a well-designed piano. This one was made when Carl Bechstein himself was still alive, so perhaps he would have done the quality control on the piano himself. Now you don't see any V on the frame here, which is what you see on the younger one. See, here's the younger one. It has a V, model 5, Roman V, and that's Bechstein went 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 of the older models, and you can see the frame though looks almost identical. There are some slight differences. We'll have a look. Now here's the younger one. It's slightly flatter there, not really that much difference, and down at this base end there's an extra bolt in the younger one that's not in this older one. You may not see the difference in the flatness on this one. If we look round the bolts at the far end here, let's have a look. So there we go. I don't think you can see it very well, I'm sorry about that. There we are, you can see it through the strings. Now interestingly, this younger one has needed a new soundboard. This Struntz soundboard has been fitted, one of the main soundboard makers in the world today, and it is really very well done, as we'll listen in a minute. And this older one certainly needed the soundboard shimmed, but the crown was clearly still there, and it wasn't necessary to replace it, so this has just been repaired. And that, normally I much prefer that because you get the original tone of the piano much better on original soundboard. Now let's listen to the pianos. Here's the older one. Quite a good break. It needs voicing a bit. We'll look at that in a minute. We're just finishing it off at the moment. And nice and strong right up to the top, but the middle section is the main section, and very good down bearing there. Considering the age of the piano, that's wonderful really. And just voicing is what's needed there. Let's look at the younger one. Now here's the tone of the younger one, and in fact it's excellent. So the soundboard's obviously very high quality. Let's listen to the break point, and that is very, very good. You can hardly tell the difference between bass and treble. And again, nice strong tone right up to the top. Now, as I say, we have a Bluthners pianos in stock at this time, much mellower sound. This has a beautiful veneer, as you can see, and one of our really preferred makes. It's an ideal domestic piano, Blutner. Here's a restored Steinway grand piano in stock. This one's dated 1907. Different touch on the Steinway. It's difficult to describe. You've got to really just come and try them, I think. This also needs voicing. It's not quite finished off yet. It'll probably take about 3 or 4 more days' work before it's sounding as we'd like it to. This is a Rosewood Model O Steinway, 1922. Now this one, it was just reconditioned because it didn't need full restoration. The keys are a wonderful condition. The piano itself, the polish is excellent throughout. We have improved it slightly just where it needed it. At the sides and the top of the piano, it's actually redder than it looks on the video. I think if you look at this video, it's going to come out slightly yellower, but it's actually more typical rosewood colour, really. It's got a typically warm Steinway tone as well, right through from the bass, and the break point is very good too. So it's been restored by somebody not very, very long ago, not sure when, but We do need to do a bit more refinement, just a little bit of reconditioning, but not much. And again, it has a really strong sound to the top of the piano. Beautiful mid-treble. This is a 1911 Bluthners, 5 foot 9 inches long. Again, we haven't fully restored this one, it's just needed reconditioning. It's been restored before. The keys need work. We'll either replace these, I think, or try and make better, but the join is extremely bad on them. I'm sure we'll either, I'd like to replace them really, but a lot of clients want the ivories kept, obviously, because it's a shame to lose the originals. Wonderful pattern on the veneer here, a little bit scratched on the top. We can obviously repolish this piano if required, or sell it less expensively. In the polishing room here we have the small style 4 Bluthners, 150 centimeters long. Again, the keys are excellent on this one, actually one piece ivory, so it's been fully restored very, very well recently. The casework, we're intending to repolish it, though again, if you want to buy a piano less expensively, then obviously polishing takes about 60 or 70 hours, so it will save a lot of money. You see the top of it very much needs polishing there. Other parts of the piano are very good, so this is the music stand. This is a much shorter piano, so the bass isn't nearly as rich, but that obviously, for a 150 centimeter piano, you don't get much better than the Bluthners. In fact, I think it's our favourite one, 150 centimeter long piano. Such a rich tone for its size. Now down the bottom of the price range we have this Petrov, 170 centimeters long. It's a part exchange. The client bought a Bluthners from us. The Petrov is perfectly respectable. It's a bit faded at the front, as you can see, but apart from that the casework is very uniform. It's a polyester finish on it, and very respected make Petrov, so it's nothing wrong with the piano. It's an excellent instrument. So back to the Bechsteins, let's look at the hammers and see what we can say about the difference. It's very interesting to see the difference on the actions. Now this is the older Bechstein, when Carl Bechstein was still around, I'm sure, doing quality control on these. And you can see, first of all, technicians will recognise that this is just wood instead of metal. We'll see on the younger one, which is more common, or we see more of them. But this action, you can see we've changed hammers, shanks and rollers. Now this one had already got the hammers marked. On the other ones you see we had to artificially mark them. This has been played in a bit more, the hammers have been played a bit. By the way, the more the hammers are played, they gradually develop a bounce. But you find that when the hammers are new, we need to voice them, and we voice the unicorder pedal. You can see the slight roughening up there. That's so I know which ones I've voiced actually, and I can always smooth that off afterwards. But just voicing the very top of the hammer, say over a period of time, it'll squash and it'll get bounce in it as this squashes down. You can see on these Arbel hammers the layers of the felt. You don't see that on Renner, but it just squashes down. Arbel are slightly softer anyway initially, so they don't quite need so much voicing. But you can see, first of all, you need to mark the strings, and then in between the marks you can voice the unicorder pedal. We've seen that, you'll see that on other videos too, where I've tried to show that. I have my own method of doing it. If you're a technician and have a better way, please let me know, because we're learning all the time. But you can see the felts have been replaced here. Just everything's been done to the highest quality, and new rollers, new hammers, new shanks. It's the normal, as you've seen in previous videos, I'm sure. And then the spring works beautifully. But the interesting thing about this is it has no adjustment on the jack. It relies on the felt being the right thickness, and that's something we have to look at. We have to really make sure. But once it's regulated, it doesn't need a regulation screw on the jack as you'd normally get on an action. It has the Steinway style here spring, and again, no adjustment here for the screw adjustment for the strength of the spring, so you have to adjust it like you do with Steinways, pulling it out. We'll have a look at the Model V, the younger Bechstein, in a second, but just cast your eyes on this for a minute. Perhaps it looks slightly more like a Steinway here. Well, you'll see what I mean when we look at the other one, but it's a simpler action. Very, very nice to work on, very well designed. Well, by the way, on both of these, we've changed the old rocker system into a modern capstan. That's so useful to do on Bechsteins, and you'll have seen we've done that on others as well. So that's the standard work that we do. So here we have the younger 1903 Bechstein. By the way, that's very late for a Model 5. And 1902 is what you normally get them at, but there's a slight transitional period. Much heavier action to pull in and out. Not so pleasant to work on in that sense, but this is like any typical modern Bechstein, modern Grand, heavier action. And let's just have a look at the hammers here. Oh, by the way, we did replace as well, you can see the old rocker system again, which is standard work once we're doing so much work on a piano. So there we are. But if you look at the action here, apart from having the metal action stays instead of the wood, we look up here, we've got the hammer shanks and rollers changed, all the felts again, but look at this screw here. This is the adjustment screw for the spring. So a different system. You'll see online these two different systems if you look for diagrams of grand piano actions. Now this is to me much preferred. You can adjust it so easily with the spring. You don't have to keep pulling the spring in and out and then just sort of doing it by trial and error. Though if you're used to that, it becomes quite easy. Look at this adjustment screw here. Instead of relying on resting on the felt, this has got an adjustment screw which you can pull in and out and adjust the angle of the jack. That makes it a lot more easier. But same result on the old one. It's just obviously nicer to have this in a way. So modern actions all have this adjustment system now. So it's interesting to see the difference and how it's developed since 1886. So the piano itself, the frame, and the general construction, very, very little difference. I prefer the old wood here, just easier to pull in and out, much lighter. Apart from that, we've got the adjustment screws, which are very, very useful on the later Bechstein actions. I forgot to mention on the younger Bechstein, we had to artificially mark where the hammer hits the string because there were no marks there at all. So the method we use for this is to put carbon paper in between the hammer and the string, so the carbon, obviously carbon side down, and play the piano, and the hammer marks with the marks of the carbon paper. It's a method that my colleague suggested to me, and works really well. So then you can see I've voiced these. This is the sign of the fluffiness. As I say, you can take that off afterwards, but it tells me which ones I've done, so I know if I come back to it. These are voiced for the unicorder pedal in between. You'll see other videos about that. And then I'll just show you what that sounds like though, the difference. So I voiced for the unicorder pedal from this F to the C. And that's with no pedal. Now let's try it with the pedal. Sorry. Quite a difference. Of course, you can decide how different that's going to be. Some composers, some pianists really like a huge contrast. Others don't really use the unicorder pedal very much. There's quite a variety of pianists, but you can hear the difference, huge difference. Just to make that clear, the place to voice for the unicorder is in between where the strings hit. So there, and there. And the string should just catch the edge of this hammer, so you've got to make the shift so that the hammer just catches the edge of the string, sorry. So you just voice there, and then there, and then there. And if you're bound to stray a little bit, then you can listen to the hammer itself, see whether you like the tone of it, or whether it's a bit harsh, and then just gently pepper it on the top. Don't go very deep. If you don't go very deep, then you can always go back on yourself. It's not a problem because you're not going very deep into the hammer. You can always just reface it slightly and get the original tone back. If you go too deep, you'll destroy the hammer, so be very careful with that if you're a novice. Once you get used to it, you can see these deeper toning marks here, voicing marks there. These are arbel hammers again, so they don't need much voicing as Renner do. So that's an assessment of two Bechstein grand pianos and a quick look at some others. These are both 2 meters long, but one of them was made in 1886 and the other one in 1903. Which one is best? Can't really answer that question. They're both very different. Both extremely pleasant pianos. Very warm sounding, and the action, I think the Bechstein action is one of the nicest to play that there is. Compared to a modern piano, I personally prefer it. This is the younger one, 1903, very young indeed for a Model 5, and the Model 5 I think is my favourite model of Bechstein taken overall. The B's a very good piano, but Model 5 is just very special and goes right through. I say the previous one, the other piano doesn't have a 5 on it, so they mustn't have called it a 5 at that stage. But both basically the same models, frame very similar, action simpler on the older one, but both work exactly the same. Geometry is exactly the same. And here's the 1886 one. It's the oldest one we've restored, and I'm really enthusiastic about it. I'd like to do some more of this age. It's such a fluid action. It's not exactly better than the other one, but of course we had to change the key tops on this, so if you like ivories, you prefer the other one. I just somehow in love with the tone and the touch on this one, and the other one too. If it wasn't for this one, I'd say the other one was really very special indeed. But this is just such a quality to it, and I love the pedal design as well. I don't normally come out in favour of one piano over another. I try and make an impartial assessment of the both, but they're both very good too. Very good tone. Tenor area, superb in both pianos. Obviously the best strings we've used, all German parts. Just sparkles, this piano, as well as plays romantically. So if you're ever thinking that 1886 is too old for a piano, think again. I'm sure Carl Bechstein was very proud of this when he made it. Thank you very much for listening.